Imagine sending your child on a normal summer bus ride, and then the entire bus disappears. Not one child, not two, 26 children and their driver vanished from a quiet California road. It happened on July 10th, 1976, near Chowchilla, California. The children were coming home from a summer school trip, and their bus driver was a 55-year-old man named Ed Ray. The kids were between 5 and 14 years old. For them, it was supposed to be just another ride home. But that afternoon became one of the strangest kidnappings in American history. As Ed Ray drove down a country road, he noticed a van blocking the way. At first, it looked like a normal problem on the road. Then everything changed. 3 masked men appeared. They took control of the school bus and forced Ed Ray to stop. In seconds, a normal school ride turned into a nightmare. The kidnappers moved the bus off the road and hid it. They covered it with brush so it would be harder to find. Then they forced everyone into 2 vans. Later, the bus was found empty. No children, no driver. Only the terrifying question remained: where had they been taken? Back in Chowchilla, families started to panic. Parents waited for children who never came home. The whole town suddenly understood something was very wrong. Police began searching roads, fields, and canals, but there was no clear clue showing where the children had gone. Every hour made the situation feel worse. The story spread fast. A full school bus had disappeared in broad daylight, and no one knew if the children were still alive. Inside the vans, the children had no idea where they were going. They were scared, tired, and trapped. Ed Ray tried to keep them calm, even though he was trapped too. The drive lasted for hours. Not 1 hour, not 3, around 11 hours. The kidnappers were taking them far away from Chowchilla. Finally, they arrived at a rock quarry near Livermore, California. It was dark, isolated, and far from anyone who could help them. Waiting there was something the kidnappers had prepared in advance: a buried moving van underground. This was not random, this was planned. One by one, the children and Ed Ray were forced inside. The space was small, dirty, and buried under the ground. They had been hidden alive. This is where Ed Ray became the most important person in the story. He knew if everyone panicked, they might not survive. So he kept talking, kept calming them, and kept thinking. There were only small air tubes bringing in oxygen. The air was hot and heavy. The children were underground, and nobody outside knew exactly where they were. Ed Ray started looking for any possible way out. The entrance above them was blocked by a heavy steel plate. It seemed impossible to move, but they did not give up. They stacked mattresses and anything they could find, trying to reach the roof. Slowly, an escape plan started forming. Ed Ray and some of the older boys began digging upward. They had no real tools. It was their hands, their strength, and one choice: escape or wait to die. Dirt started falling back on them. The work was exhausting. But every small movement meant they were closer to air, closer to light, and closer to home. After hours underground, they finally opened a small hole. For the first time, light came through. That tiny opening meant they still had a chance. One survivor climbed out, then another, then another. After being buried underground for about 16 hours, they were escaping. All 26 children and Ed Ray made it out alive. Think about that. 27 people buried underground, and not one of them died. When the buried van was later found empty, it looked almost impossible. Mattresses, dirt, and a hole above showed how they had fought their way out. After escaping, they still had to find help. They were exhausted, dirty and frightened, but they were alive. That was the only thing that mattered. Ed Ray helped get the children to safety. He was not a soldier, not a detective, not a superhero. He was a bus driver who refused to let those kids give up. Investigators later found the buried van and uncovered how carefully the crime had been planned. The kidnappers had wanted a $5 million ransom. When the children returned home, the relief was unbelievable. Parents who had feared the worst were finally able to hold their children again. The kidnappers were eventually caught. Their plan had failed before they could even collect the ransom. The children escaped before the crime reached its final step. In court, the case shocked people because of how calculated it was. The victims were children, the target was a school bus, and the hiding place was underground. After that day, Chowchilla was never just a quiet town again. One ordinary school bus became part of a story people still talk about decades later. The survival was not luck alone. It was calm thinking, teamwork, and the courage of a driver who stayed with the children when they needed him most. Now imagine being trapped underground, with darkness around you and only a small amount of air. Would you stay calm and fight your way out, or would fear take over?